The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from 47 civilizations gathered for an emergency session. Ambassador Zexhai of the Vorthak Empire tapped his clawed fingers against the crystalline table, his multiple eyes darting between the holographic displays showing recent battle footage. "The humans have destroyed another of our patrol fleets," announced Chancellor Mirathos, her scaled head crest flaring with agitation, 3 dreadnoughts completely obliterated. No survivors. A collective shudder ran through the assembly. The humans had appeared in their galaxy only 50 cycles ago, emerging from the void beyond the rim worlds in crude metal ships that belched fire and radiation. At first, the Council had dismissed them as another primitive species that would either join the galactic community or be conquered by more advanced civilizations. How wrong they had been. Their weapons are barbaric, growled General Korthak, his massive frame causing the reinforced chair to creak under his weight. No energy shields, no particle beam arrays. They use kinetic projectiles and nuclear explosives like savages. Yet somehow these primitive weapons tear through our most advanced defenses. Ambassador Yelnara from the Ethereal Collective floated forward, her translucent form shimmering with distress. "It's not just their weapons. It's how they fight. They show no fear of death. No regard for their own survival. They pilot damaged ships directly into our formations, sacrificing themselves to take down vessels worth 1,000 times more than their crude fighters." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Every civilized species in the galaxy had evolved beyond such reckless behavior. War was conducted with careful strategy, minimal casualties, and respect for life. The humans fought like wild animals backed into a corner. "Their tactics make no sense," Admiral Thexmore added, his cybernetic implants flickering as he accessed military databases. "They split their forces, attack from impossible angles, and refuse to surrender even when facing certain death. My fleet commanders report that human ships will continue firing even as they're being torn apart." Chancellor Mirathos pulled up a holographic display showing the current territorial boundaries. Red markers indicated human-controlled space, a cancerous growth that had expanded rapidly across former Council worlds. "In 50 cycles, they've claimed 17 star systems. Every attempt to negotiate has failed. They respond to our diplomatic overtures with silence, then attack our envoys." "What do we know about their homeworld?" asked Ambassador Zexhai, leaning forward with interest. "Very little," replied Dr. Veltara, the Council's chief xenobiologist. "Long-range scans indicate a planet with extreme environmental conditions, high radiation levels, violent weather patterns, and multiple predator species. Most disturbing of all, the humans appear to have evolved from persistence hunters. They literally chase their prey to death across vast distances." The revelation sent another wave of unease through the chamber. Persistence hunting was considered one of the most terrifying evolutionary traits in the galaxy. Species that developed such abilities rarely progressed beyond savage tribalism. "There's more," Dr. Veltara continued, her tentacles writhing with anxiety. "Intercepted communications suggest they call their world Hell in their own language. They've named their homeworld after their mythological realm of eternal suffering." "Impossible," scoffed General Korthak. "No species would evolve intelligence on a death world. The environmental pressure would prevent the development of higher cognitive functions." "Yet here they are," Chancellor Mirathos said grimly, "tearing through our fleets with ships that shouldn't even be spaceworthy. Their vessels lack proper life support systems. They operate in environments that would kill most of us within minutes." Ambassador Yelnara's form flickered with fear. "My scouts report that human soldiers fight without environmental suits in the vacuum of space. They modify their own bodies with crude mechanical implants that would be rejected by any civilized medical system. It's as if they've weaponized their own biological functions." The discussion was interrupted by an urgent chime. A junior aide rushed into the chamber, his breathing apparatus wheezing with exertion. "Urgent transmission from the Outer Rim defense grid," he gasped. "The humans are moving." The main display activated, showing a tactical overview of the galaxy's edge. Hundreds of red dots were streaming inward from human space, heading directly toward the core worlds. Each dot represented a human fleet, and there were far more of them than anyone had imagined possible. "How many ships?" asked Admiral Thexmore, his optical sensors focusing intently on the display. "Initial count indicates over 10,000 vessels," the aide reported, his voice cracking with disbelief. "And they're broadcasting a message on all frequencies. Put it through, ordered Chancellor Mirathos. The chamber filled with a harsh, guttural sound that made several representatives recoil in disgust. It was human speech, translated by the Council's universal communicators into something barely comprehensible. People of the galaxy, the voice began, rough and uncompromising. You have attacked our colonies. You have threatened our families. You have made war upon humanity. This ends now. We are coming for you all. Resistance is futile. Your civilizations will burn. Your worlds will be ours. You wanted to see what humans are capable of? You're about to find out. The transmission cut to static, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. For a long moment, no one dared speak. The reality of their situation was becoming clear. They had awakened something terrible, and it was coming for them with the fury of a species that had conquered the most hostile world in known space. How long until they reach the core worlds? Whispered Ambassador HFY. Based on their current speed, the aide calculated frantically. Approximately 30 cycles. 30 cycles to prepare for a war unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. 30 cycles before humanity showed the universe exactly why their homeworld was called Hell, and why the species that had survived it was the most dangerous force the galaxy had ever encountered. Admiral Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, watching the swirling hyperspace tunnel collapse behind her fleet as they dropped into normal space. Before them stretched the Kepler defense grid, a massive array of space stations and automated weapons platforms that protected the galaxy's most important trade routes. It was also humanity's first major target in their campaign to end this war once and for all. Tactical report, she ordered, her weathered face illuminated by the blue glow of holographic displays. 230 enemy vessels detected, reported Lieutenant Commander Park from the sensor station. Mix of council races. Vorthak dreadnoughts, ethereal stealth cruisers, and what looks like a full Korthak battle squadron. Elena nodded grimly. The aliens had been preparing for this confrontation for weeks, gathering their most powerful ships to make a stand. They still didn't understand what they were dealing with. Signal the fleet. Begin bombardment pattern Alpha. Target their command vessels first. Across the human formation, weapon systems came online with mechanical precision. Unlike the elegant energy weapons favored by council races, human ships bristled with mass drivers, nuclear torpedo tubes, and kinetic kill vehicles. Their vessels looked crude compared to the sleek alien designs, but appearances were deceiving. The first salvo erupted from the human fleet like a storm of metal and fire. Tungsten rods accelerated to significant fractions of light speed tore through alien energy shields as if they didn't exist. Nuclear warheads detonated in brilliant flashes, their electromagnetic pulses scrambling sophisticated council electronics. Direct hit on the Vorthak flagship, called out Weapons Officer Chen. Their shields are down, hull breach detected, but the aliens were fighting back with everything they had. Particle beams lanced across the void, striking human vessels and burning through their armored hulls. A destroyer to Elena's port side took a direct hit from a Korthak plasma cannon, its entire forward section vaporizing in seconds. UES Morrison is gone, reported the communications officer. No survivors. Elena felt the familiar cold rage building in her chest. Another 150 human souls lost to alien aggression. The council races thought they were civilized, but they had started this war by attacking human colonies. Now they would learn the price of that mistake. All ships implement Doctrine 7, she commanded. Throughout the human fleet, captains received the order with grim satisfaction. Doctrine 7 was humanity's answer to superior alien technology. Since they couldn't match council ships in raw firepower or defensive capability, they had developed tactics that no civilized species would even consider. The first phase began immediately. Human vessels broke formation and scattered across the battlefield, abandoning all conventional tactical doctrine. Each ship became an independent hunter, using their superior maneuverability to close distance with alien vessels. Captain Rodriguez aboard the UES Vengeance was the first to make contact. His heavy cruiser had taken severe damage from enemy fire, but his engines were still functional. As the ethereal stealth ship decloaked behind him, preparing to deliver a killing blow, Rodriguez smiled coldly. Engine room, emergency burn. All power to rear thrusters, he ordered. Sir, that will overload our reactor, his chief engineer protested. Execute the order. The Vengeance's fusion reactor screamed past redline, as massive amounts of energy flooded into the propulsion system. The ship accelerated backward at crushing G-forces that would have liquefied any alien crew. Rodriguez and his people endured the punishment through sheer human stubbornness, their reinforced bones and enhanced cardiovascular systems barely keeping them conscious. The ethereal captain watched in horror as the human ship reversed course at impossible speed. Before he could react, the Vengeance's armored prow slammed into his vessel's delicate hull. Both ships disappeared in a nuclear fireball that painted the surrounding void in harsh white light. Similar scenes played out across the battlefield, as human crews implemented kamikaze tactics with mechanical precision. Ships too damaged to continue fighting became weapons themselves, their captains steering them directly into enemy formations. The aliens tried to adapt, but their careful tactical doctrines had no answer for an enemy willing to trade life for life. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Commander Park, his voice tight with excitement. "The alien formation is breaking up. They're pulling back toward the defense grid." Elena studied the tactical display with satisfaction. The Council forces had expected a conventional engagement, ship against ship in orderly battle lines. Instead, they faced chaos incarnate. Human vessels moved like sharks through their formations, ignoring damage that would cripple any other species. "Signal all captains," she ordered. "Phase 2 is authorized." Now came the truly horrifying part of human doctrine. As the alien ships retreated toward their defensive positions, human boarding craft launched from concealed positions throughout the fleet. These weren't the elegant assault shuttles used by civilized species, but crude metal boxes filled with human soldiers in powered armor. The boarding craft made no attempt at stealth or finesse. They simply accelerated toward alien vessels at maximum burn, their thick armor plating absorbing defensive fire. When they reached their targets, they didn't dock politely at airlocks. Instead, they punched through hull plating using shaped explosive charges, creating their own entry points. What happened next was every alien's nightmare made real. Human soldiers poured into enemy vessels like a plague, their primitive ballistic weapons cutting through sophisticated energy shields. They fought in environments that would instantly kill most species, breathing recycled air from tanks while alien atmosphere burned their exposed skin. The Vorthak tried to seal off compartments, hoping to contain the human incursions. But human soldiers simply cut through bulkheads with plasma torches, turning elegant starship corridors into hellish mazes of molten metal and choking smoke. They moved through alien vessels like living viruses, destroying everything in their path. "Alien command ship is reporting multiple hull breaches," the communications officer announced. "They're requesting assistance." Elena felt no sympathy for the enemy. They had chosen to make war on humanity. Now they were learning why humans had conquered the most dangerous world in known space. Every environmental hazard, every predator, every disease their homeworld had thrown at them had only made humanity stronger. "No quarter," she replied coldly. "Press the attack until they surrender or die." The battle raged for 6 more hours, but the outcome had been decided in the first 30 minutes. When the alien commander finally transmitted his surrender, less than 50 Council ships remained operational. The Kepler defense grid, pride of galactic civilization, lay in ruins around them. As Elena watched the surviving alien vessels power down their weapons, she felt a moment of dark satisfaction. The galaxy was learning the truth about humanity. They weren't just another species to be conquered or dismissed. They were the children of hell itself, and they had come to collect what was owed. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in an undisclosed location, far from the advancing human fleets. The once proud assembly hall now resembled a war bunker, with blast shields covering the transparent aluminum windows and armed guards posted at every entrance. Chancellor Mirathos looked haggard as she called the session to order. Her scaled crest, once vibrant purple, had faded to a sickly gray. "The situation has deteriorated beyond our worst projections," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "The Kepler defense grid has fallen. 17 worlds have gone dark. Our combined fleets are in full retreat." Dr. Veltera's tentacles writhed in agitation as she accessed her research files. "I've been analyzing the human combat footage. Their behavior patterns don't match any known evolutionary psychology. They're operating beyond standard biological limitations." "Explain," demanded General Korthak, his massive frame hunched with exhaustion. Even the legendary Korthak warriors, feared throughout the galaxy for their ferocity, had been routed by human forces. "Watch this." Dr. Veltara activated a holographic display showing security footage from an alien space station. Human soldiers moved through corridors filled with toxic gas that should have killed them within seconds. Their primitive environmental suits were clearly damaged, yet they continued fighting. Impossible, breathed Ambassador Zexai. No organic being can function in those conditions. That's what we thought, Dr. Veltara replied grimly. But further analysis reveals the truth. The humans aren't just wearing armor. They've modified themselves at the genetic level, enhanced lung capacity, redundant circulatory systems, reinforced skeletal structure. They've turned their own bodies into weapons of war. The revelation sent shockwaves through the assembly. Genetic modification was considered taboo by most civilized species. The risks were too great, the ethical implications too disturbing. Yet humans had apparently embraced such modifications as casually as updating software. There's more, Dr. Veltara continued, her voice shaking. We've detected traces of nanotechnology in human blood samples. Microscopic machines that repair cellular damage in real time. They're not just enhanced. They're actively evolving during combat. Admiral Thexmore's cybernetic implants flickered rapidly as he processed this information. Are you suggesting they can adapt to our weapons during battle? Precisely. Each engagement teaches their bodies how to better survive the next one. They're not just fighting us. They're learning from us. The chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. They weren't fighting a normal species that could be worn down through attrition. They were facing an enemy that became stronger with each defeat. What about their psychology? Asked Ambassador Yelnara, her ethereal form barely visible with stress. Surely we can predict their behavior patterns. Dr. Veltara pulled up another display. This one showing brain scan comparisons between humans and other galactic species. Their neural structure is unlike anything we've encountered. The fear response that keeps most species alive is severely muted. Instead, they show heightened activity in regions associated with aggression and problem-solving when faced with mortal danger. They enjoy it, General Korthik said quietly, horror creeping into his voice. They actually enjoy combat. Not exactly, Dr. Veltara corrected. It's more accurate to say they've evolved to thrive under pressure. Their brains release chemical cocktails that enhance performance during life-threatening situations. What would paralyze us with terror makes them faster, stronger, and more focused. Chancellor Mirathos slumped in her chair. How do we fight an enemy that becomes more dangerous when threatened? Before anyone could answer, an urgent alarm echoed through the chamber. The main display activated, showing a tactical overview of local space. A single red dot was approaching their hidden location at incredible speed. One ship, reported the duty officer. Human configuration. Broadcasting a message. Put it through, Mirathos ordered, though her voice carried little hope. The speaker crackled to life with that familiar harsh human accent. This is Captain Marcus Chen of the UES Harbinger. I'm here to deliver a message from Admiral Vasquez and the Human Defense Force. The assembled representatives leaned forward despite their fear. This was the first time a human had attempted communication since the war began. Your council has exactly 72 hours to surrender unconditionally, Chen continued. All military forces will stand down. All council worlds will submit to human authority. There will be no negotiation. There will be no compromise. This is outrageous, General Korthak roared, surging to his feet. We have fought honorably according to the laws of civilized warfare. Your species ignores every convention of proper conduct. Captain Chen's laugh was cold and mechanical. Honor? You attacked our colonies without warning. You murdered human civilians. You started this war because you thought we were weak. Now you're learning the truth. What truth? Chancellor Mirathos asked, though she dreaded the answer. That humanity doesn't fight wars to be honorable. We fight wars to win. We fight wars to end them permanently. You wanted to see what humans are capable of when threatened. You've seen nothing yet. The transmission shifted to display tactical information that made several council members gasp in horror. Star charts showing human fleet positions revealed the true scope of their forces. Thousands of ships were converging on core world systems. Manufacturing centers on dozens of human worlds were producing weapons at rates that should have been impossible. How? Whispered Ambassador Zexai. How do you produce so many vessels so quickly? Same way we do everything else, Chen replied. We don't stop. We don't sleep. We don't give up. Our factories run 24 hours a day. Our workers pull double shifts because they know their families are counting on them. You think you understand sacrifice? You know nothing about sacrifice. Dr. Veltara checked her readings in disbelief. Captain, our sensors indicate your ship is operating far beyond safe parameters. Your reactor should have failed hours ago. Probably should have, Chen agreed casually, but we modified the safety protocols. Turns out most safe limits are just suggestions if you're willing to accept the risks. We've been accepting risks you couldn't imagine since we first looked up at the stars. The display shifted again, showing images of human worlds. Massive industrial complexes covered entire continents. Orbital shipyards stretched for thousands of kilometers. Cities that never slept, filled with humans who seemed to thrive on constant activity. This is your final warning, Chen concluded. 72 hours. Surrender or face total war. And understand this clearly. When we say total war, we mean the complete destruction of your civilizations. We won't just defeat your armies. We'll dismantle your entire way of life and rebuild it in humanity's image. The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. Through the blast shields, they could see Chen's ship departing as quickly as it had arrived, its damaged hull trailing plasma and radiation that would have been fatal to any other crew. What do we do? Asked Ambassador Yelnara, her voice barely audible. Chancellor Mirathos stared at the tactical display showing human forces positioning themselves around every major council world. I don't think we have a choice, she said finally. We've awakened something that should have remained sleeping. The question isn't whether we can win. The question is whether any of us will survive what's coming next. The human ultimatum expired at exactly 1200 hours Galactic Standard Time. Admiral Elena Vasquez had been counting down the minutes from the bridge of her flagship, now positioned in orbit around Vorthak Prime, the political heart of the Galactic Council. Around her, a fleet of 500 human warships waited like predators ready to strike. Any response from the Council? She asked, though she already knew the answer. Nothing but silence, Admiral, reported Communications Officer Torres. Their planetary defense grid is still active. All military installations remain operational. Elena nodded grimly. The aliens had chosen their path. Now humanity would show them the consequences of that choice. Signal all fleet commanders. Operation Hellfire is authorized. Begin planetary assault. What followed was unlike any siege in galactic history. Traditional warfare called for gradual bombardment of military targets, carefully avoiding civilian populations according to the convention of civilized combat. Humanity had never signed that convention. The first wave of human attack craft swept down through Vorthak Prime's atmosphere like a plague of metallic locusts. They ignored the elegant defense platforms and sophisticated shield generators, instead targeting the planet's industrial infrastructure with surgical precision. Power plants exploded in sequence, plunging entire continents into darkness. Communication networks went silent as human viruses infiltrated alien computer systems with algorithms designed to exploit weaknesses no council species had ever considered. Transportation hubs became infernos, as kinetic strikes turned maglev trains and anti-grav platforms into twisted wreckage. But the truly devastating attacks came from an unexpected source. Hidden among the assault craft were specialized vessels that deployed clouds of microscopic machines into the planet's atmosphere. These nanobots had been specifically designed to disrupt the complex chemical processes that kept Vorthak technology functioning. Admiral, called Science Officer Park, the enemy's energy weapons are beginning to fail. Their power cells are degrading faster than they can be replaced. Elena smiled coldly. Human scientists had spent decades studying captured alien technology, not to copy it, but to find ways to destroy it. Every sophisticated system had vulnerabilities that could be exploited by something as simple as molecular corrosion or electromagnetic interference. On the planet's surface, Vorthak defenders found themselves facing an enemy that fought like nothing in their experience. Human soldiers emerged from drop pods scattered across continents, but instead of forming traditional battle lines, they dispersed into the urban landscape like a virus spreading through a host. General Korthak himself led the defense of the capital city, his massive form easily visible as he coordinated alien forces from a fortified command center. His tactical displays showed human positions throughout the city, but every time his forces moved to engage them, The humans simply disappeared into the labyrinthine underground systems. "Where are they?" he demanded, his forearms gesturing frantically at the holographic battle map. "Our sensors show human heat signatures, but when we arrive at those positions, there's nothing." His aide, a nervous ethereal named Silthar, flickered with distress. "General, they appear to be using the city's maintenance tunnels, sewage systems, and utility conduits. They're moving through infrastructure we never considered defensible positions." "Impossible," Korthak growled. "Those areas are filled with toxic waste, high radiation, and industrial chemicals. No organic being could survive in those environments for extended periods." Even as he spoke, his words were proven wrong. 50 meters beneath his feet, Sergeant First Class Maria Santos led her squad through a steam pipe filled with acidic vapors that would have dissolved most alien species within minutes. Her enhanced respiratory system filtered the toxic air, while nanomedical systems in her bloodstream neutralized chemical burns as quickly as they formed. "Target acquired," she whispered into her comm unit, studying the thermal signature of the command bunker above. "Heavy resistance on all approaches. Requesting permission for Protocol 9. Elena's voice crackled back immediately. "Permission granted. Show them what humans do when cornered." Santos smiled grimly and activated a device that looked deceptively simple. A small metallic sphere about the size of a grenade. But this wasn't a conventional explosive. It was a miniaturized fusion charge, capable of generating temperatures found in stellar cores. The device burrowed through solid rock like water, following a precisely calculated trajectory that would position it directly beneath the alien command center. When it detonated, the explosion vaporized everything in a 50-meter radius while leaving the surrounding area relatively intact. General Korthak's last thought was confusion at how such a small human force had penetrated his defenses so easily. He never understood that humans didn't see obstacles the same way other species did. Where aliens saw impassable barriers, humans saw puzzles to be solved through ingenuity and determination. Similar scenes played out across the planet as human. Forces demonstrated tactical flexibility that bordered on the supernatural. They attacked through blizzards that would freeze most species solid. They fought in desert heat that would dehydrate aliens within hours. They operated underwater using primitive diving equipment that somehow outperformed sophisticated alien environmental suits. "Admiral," reported the tactical officer, "alien ground forces are requesting evacuation. Their command structure has completely collapsed." Elena studied the real-time imagery streaming from the planet's surface. Vorthak cities burned with fires that couldn't be extinguished because humans had targeted the firefighting infrastructure, along with everything else. Alien civilians fled in panic through streets patrolled by human soldiers who moved like ghosts through environments that should have killed them. "Signal the remaining council fleets," she ordered. "This is what happens when you threaten humanity. This is what we're capable of when you force us to war." The message broadcast across all frequencies, carrying images of the devastation below. Elena wanted every alien in the galaxy to see what had happened to the proud Vorthak Empire. Their most defended world had fallen in less than 18 hours to an enemy they had dismissed as primitive. But the true horror wasn't the destruction itself. It was the efficiency with which humans had accomplished it. They hadn't needed massive fleets or exotic weapons. They had simply applied human problem-solving to the task of warfare, treating the annihilation of alien resistance as an engineering challenge to be solved through innovation and persistence. "Incoming transmission from the Ethereal Collective," Torres announced. "They're requesting immediate ceasefire and surrender negotiations." "Too late," Elena replied without hesitation. "They had their chance to surrender peacefully. Now they'll surrender on humanity's terms." She paused, looking out at the burning world below. "Signal the next target on our list. Time to show the galaxy that Vorthak Prime was just the beginning." As human fleets moved toward their next objectives, a new reality settled across the galaxy. The species that had evolved on Hell itself had finally revealed their true nature. They weren't just another civilization to be negotiated with or conquered. They were the living embodiment of survival at any cost, and they had decided that the galaxy's existing order was no longer acceptable. The age of human dominance had begun, and there was nothing the Council could do to stop it. 3 months had passed since the fall of Vorthak Prime and the galaxy had descended into chaos. The Galactic Council existed only as scattered refugee fleets hiding in the void between stars, while human forces systematically dismantled every major alien civilization with terrifying efficiency. Chancellor Mirathos huddled in the cramped bridge of a converted merchant vessel, the last remnant of her once mighty government. Around her, the surviving council leaders argued in whispered tones, their proud species reduced to desperate fugitives. The Korthak home system fell yesterday, reported Admiral Thexmore. His cybernetic implants dimmed to avoid detection. Resistance lasted exactly 4 hours. The humans used some kind of viral weapon that turned their own defensive systems against them. Ambassador Yelnara's ethereal form flickered with despair. How many civilians? Unknown. The humans have imposed a complete information blackout, but refugee ships report entire cities simply emptied. No bodies, no destruction, just empty structures as if the population vanished. Dr. Veltara's tentacles writhed with nervous energy as she accessed her remaining research files. I've been analyzing human behavior patterns across multiple conquests. Something doesn't add up. They're not acting like conquerors. What do you mean? Mirathos asked, clinging to any hope of understanding their enemy. Traditional conquest involves subjugation, resource extraction, enslaving populations. The humans are doing none of these things. They're relocating people. Efficiently, humanely, but completely. Entire species are being moved to designated planets with minimal casualties. General Korthak, now missing 2 of his 4 arms from his last encounter with human forces, growled in frustration. Relocated where? And why? Before anyone could answer, their ship's proximity alarms began screaming. On the main display, a human vessel materialized from hyperspace directly ahead of them. It was impossibly sleek compared to the crude warships they'd encountered before, its hull gleaming with technologies that seemed decades ahead of anything humans had previously demonstrated. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the UES Revelation," came the familiar human voice. But there was something different about it. Calmer, more refined. "Chancellor Mirathos, I'm here to extend an invitation from the Human Council." The bridge fell silent. In 3 months of war, this was the first time humans had used the word invitation instead of surrender or submission. "You have 5 minutes to decide," Chen continued. "Transport to our ship for a face-to-face meeting, or continue running until your fuel runs out." "Your choice." Mirathos looked around at her exhausted colleagues. They all knew their ships couldn't run much longer. Supplies were dwindling and human hunter-killer groups were closing in from all directions. "I'll go," she decided. "If they wanted us dead, we'd already be floating in space." The transport to the human vessel was unlike anything Mirathos had experienced. Instead of the harsh industrial corridors she expected, she found herself in an elegantly appointed meeting room, with transparent aluminum walls offering a stunning view of the star field beyond. The air was perfectly calibrated for her species' requirements, and the furniture had been specifically designed to accommodate her physical needs. Captain Chen was waiting, but she looked nothing like the battle-hardened warriors they'd been fighting. She was young, perhaps 30 in human years, with calm eyes and an easy smile. More disturbing still, she wasn't alone. Standing beside her were representatives from dozens of alien species, all wearing the same strange insignia on their clothing. "Chancellor Mirathos," Chen said warmly, "thank you for accepting our invitation. I know this must be confusing after everything that's happened." "Confusing doesn't begin to describe it," Mirathos replied carefully. "We've been at war for 3 months. Now you invite me to tea?" Chen laughed, a genuinely pleasant sound. "The war ended 6 weeks ago. You just didn't know it yet. Please sit. Let me explain what's really been happening." Against her better judgment, Mirathos took the offered seat. Around the table, alien representatives watched her with expressions she couldn't quite read. They didn't look like prisoners or slaves. They looked hopeful. "First," Chen began, "I should clarify something important. The humans you've been fighting weren't our military forces. They were our construction crews." "Construction crews?" Mirathos's crest flared with indignation. "Your construction crews destroyed our fleets and conquered our worlds?" "Built," Chen corrected gently. "They built a new infrastructure, relocated populations to safer environments, and dismantled systems that were preventing galactic development. The violence was regrettable, but your leaders refused to listen to peaceful alternatives. She activated a holographic display showing the current state of the galaxy. What Mirathos saw defied everything she thought she knew. Former Council worlds were thriving with activity, but it wasn't the activity of conquest. Massive construction projects linked star systems with transportation networks. Industrial centers produced goods at unprecedented scales. Most shocking of all, populations that had supposedly been conquered were working alongside humans on projects that seemed to benefit everyone. What you're seeing, Chen explained, is the Terran Development Project. For the past 50 years, humanity has been preparing to uplift galactic civilization to our standards. The war was just the final phase of removing governmental obstacles to progress. Your standards? Mirathos struggled to process the implications. You mean you planned this entire conflict? We analyzed galactic society extensively, Chen confirmed. The council system was holding back technological and social development by centuries. Too much bureaucracy, too many restrictions on innovation, too much fear of change. Humanity decided to implement necessary reforms. A Vorthak representative leaned forward. Chancellor, you should know that my people's standard of living has increased by 400% since human integration began. Our life expectancy has doubled. Our children are learning technologies we couldn't have imagined. But the destruction, Mirathos protested. The casualties. Entire fleets were annihilated. Chen's expression grew more serious. Every military engagement was calculated to minimize long-term suffering. Yes, there were casualties. But consider the alternative. The council system was failing. Resource distribution was inefficient. Medical technology was stagnating. Billions of beings throughout the galaxy were living in conditions that humans consider unacceptable. The holographic display shifted to show comparative statistics. Population health, resource distribution, technological advancement, quality of life metrics. In every category, human-administered worlds showed dramatic improvements over their previous conditions under council governance. You're telling me, Mirathos said slowly, that this entire war was a humanitarian intervention? Among other things, Chen admitted. But primarily it was about survival, not human survival, galactic survival. Our long-range projections indicated that the current system would collapse within 2 centuries, leading to resource wars that would devastate inhabited space. We decided to accelerate the transition to a more sustainable model. An ethereal representative flickered with excitement. Chancellor, they've solved the energy crisis that's plagued our species for millennia. Human fusion technology has made scarcity obsolete. The medical advances alone, added a Korthak delegate, have eliminated diseases that have plagued our people since we reached the stars. Mirathos felt her worldview crumbling. But your people, they fought like savages. They showed no mercy, Chen nodded sadly. Our construction crews are recruited from Earth's most challenging environments. They're conditioned to overcome any obstacle, solve any problem, endure any hardship. When you opposed them with military force, they responded the only way they knew how. Efficiently. Earth, Mirathos whispered. Your homeworld. We called it hell. It is, Chen agreed. But that's what made us capable of helping you. A species that can survive hell can solve problems that would destroy anyone else. We saw the galaxy suffering under inefficient systems, and we did what humans always do when they see a problem that needs fixing. The truth hit Mirathos like a physical blow. Humanity hadn't conquered the galaxy out of aggression or greed. They had conquered it out of compassion. Their brutal efficiency in warfare was the same brutal efficiency they applied to engineering, medicine, and social organization. They had looked at galactic civilization and decided it wasn't good enough. What happens now? She asked quietly. Chen smiled that same warm, genuine smile. Now we get to work building something better, together. The galaxy is about to become a much more interesting place. 1 year later, Chancellor Mirathos stood in what had once been the Galactic Council chambers, now transformed into something she barely recognized. The sterile, formal architecture had been replaced with a design that somehow managed to accommodate the environmental needs of dozens of species while maintaining an atmosphere of collaborative energy. She was no longer Chancellor of anything. That title belonged to the past. Now she served as Director of Interspecies Cultural Integration, a position that would have been impossible under the old system, but had become essential in the new galactic order. Director Mirathos, called a familiar voice. She turned to see Captain Sarah Chen approaching. though Chen now wore the insignia of the Terran Development Authority rather than military markings. The morning briefing is about to begin. The briefing room buzzed with activity that would have seemed chaotic to the old council, but represented something unprecedented in galactic history. Humans worked alongside Vorthak engineers. Ethereal artists collaborated with Korthak architects, and species that had never interacted before shared ideas across communication barriers that human technology had made obsolete. First item, announced Director Harrison, a human administrator whose calm efficiency reminded Mirathos why her species had found humans so terrifying in combat. The Kepler System Infrastructure Project is ahead of schedule. The new hyperspace network will reduce travel time between rimworlds and core systems by 85%. Ambassador Yelnara, now serving as ethereal liaison for consciousness studies, flickered with enthusiasm. The psychic amplification nodes are exceeding all projections. We're achieving levels of interspecies mental communication that we thought were impossible. Dr. Veltara, whose research had been expanded rather than restricted under human administration, displayed holographic models that made Mirathos's head spin. The biological compatibility protocols are showing remarkable results. We've successfully created hybrid technologies that combine organic and mechanical systems in ways that benefit all species involved. But it was General Korthak's report that truly demonstrated how much had changed. The former military leader now served as Director of Planetary Defense, but his role had evolved far beyond traditional military concerns. The new defensive networks aren't just protecting against external threats, he explained, his regenerated arms gesturing at tactical displays. We're using the same systems to coordinate disaster response, manage resource distribution, and maintain environmental stability across 200 systems simultaneously. Mirathos listened with a mixture of amazement and lingering unease. The efficiency was undeniable. The improvements to quality of life throughout the galaxy were beyond anything the Council had achieved in centuries of careful governance. But the speed of change was still overwhelming. Director, Chen said, noticing her expression. You have concerns about the pace of development? Not concerns exactly, Mirathos replied carefully. But my species values gradual adaptation. This level of change in such a short time frame challenges our psychological comfort zones. Chen nodded with understanding. That's exactly why we need your perspective. Human tendency is to solve problems as quickly as possible. We sometimes forget that other species require time to process major changes. It was a conversation that had been repeated countless times over the past year. Humanity's drive to improve everything immediately had to be balanced against other species' needs for stability and gradual transition. The results had been a learning experience for everyone involved. The Cultural Adaptation Committee has proposed new protocols, added Dr. Veltara, implementation timelines that respect psychological comfort zones while still maintaining forward momentum. We call it sustainable progress management. The meeting continued for several hours, covering topics that ranged from technological advancement to artistic collaboration. What struck Mirathos most deeply was how naturally different species had learned to work together once the artificial barriers of the old system had been removed. After the meeting, she found herself walking through the station's observation deck with Chen, looking out at a vista that symbolized the new galactic order. Ships from dozens of worlds moved in carefully coordinated patterns, their designs now incorporating aesthetic and functional elements from multiple species. A year ago, I thought your people were monsters, Mirathos admitted. The violence, the ruthless efficiency, the complete disregard for established protocol. We couldn't understand how any intelligent species could be so aggressive. Chen was quiet for a moment, watching a human construction vessel work alongside ethereal consciousness shapers to install new communication arrays. We are aggressive, she finally said. But aggression isn't always destructive. Sometimes it's just the determination to make things better, no matter how difficult the process might be. Your homeworld, Mirathos continued. We still don't fully understand how such a hostile environment produced a species capable of such compassion. Hell didn't make us compassionate, Chen corrected gently. It made us strong enough to act on our compassion. Easy environments create species that can afford to ignore problems. Difficult environments create species that have to solve problems or die. Earth taught us that suffering is a choice when you have the tools to prevent it. A chime indicated an incoming transmission, and the observation deck's display activated to show Admiral Elena Vasquez. The woman who had led humanity's conquest of the galaxy now oversaw the largest peaceful construction project in galactic history. Directors, Vasquez began, I have an update on the Deep Space Exploration Initiative. Our joint human-alien crews have made first contact with 3 new species beyond the rim worlds. Initial assessments suggest they're facing environmental crises that their current technology can't solve. Mirathos felt her crest flutter with anticipation. A year ago, this would have been reported to the Council as a potential diplomatic situation requiring careful study and gradual engagement. Now it was simply another problem to be solved. Recommendations? Chen asked. Standard integration protocols, Vasquez replied. Offer technological assistance. Evaluate social systems for optimization opportunities and begin cultural exchange programs. Estimated timeline for full integration is 18 months. Approved, Chen said without hesitation. Keep us informed of any complications. As the transmission ended, Mirathos realized she was no longer disturbed by the speed of human decision-making. Over the past year, she had seen humanity's approach produce results that spoke for themselves. Problems that would have taken the Council decades to address were being solved in months. 3 more species, she mused, each with their own unique perspectives and capabilities. A year ago, I would have worried about the complexity of managing such diversity. And now? Chen asked. Now I'm excited to see what we can accomplish together. They stood in comfortable silence, watching ships that represented a dozen different philosophical approaches to engineering work together, on projects that no single species could have imagined. It was a view that represented something unprecedented in galactic history. True cooperation between radically different forms of consciousness, united by a common goal of making existence better for everyone involved. The galaxy had feared humanity's power. Now it was learning to appreciate humanity's purpose. And that purpose, Mirathos was beginning to understand, was simply to ensure that no being anywhere had to suffer when the tools existed to prevent that suffering. It was an aggressive form of compassion, but it was proving to be exactly what the galaxy had needed all along. 5 years had passed since the end of the integration war, and the galaxy bore little resemblance to its former self. Director Mirathos stood before the Memorial of Understanding, a crystalline monument that honored both the species lost to galactic inefficiency and those who had died during humanity's intervention. The memorial wasn't just a structure, it was a living testament to why the changes had been necessary. Today marked the 5th anniversary of the last military action, when human forces had completed the integration of the Outer Rim territories. But more importantly, it marked the beginning of what historians were already calling the Golden Age of galactic civilization. Director, came a voice behind her. She turned to find Dr. Elena Vasquez, formerly Admiral Vasquez, now serving as Director of Interstellar Development. The transformation of Earth's most effective military commander into the galaxy's leading peace builder had been one of humanity's most remarkable achievements. The Council of Species is ready for your address, Vasquez continued, her tone carrying the same quiet confidence that had once struck terror into alien hearts, now applied to the challenges of construction and cooperation. Mirathos nodded, taking one last look at the memorial. Among the flowing crystal formations were holographic displays showing real-time statistics from across the galaxy. Life expectancy up 340% across all species. Interstellar poverty eliminated entirely. Disease rates reduced to virtually 0. The numbers told a story of transformation that would have been dismissed as impossible just 5 years earlier. The council chamber was a masterpiece of interspecies architecture, designed to accommodate the physical and psychological needs of over 300 different sentient species. Representatives from civilizations that had once been bitter enemies now worked together on challenges that spanned multiple star systems. As Mirathos took the podium, she looked out at faces that represented the greatest diversity of consciousness ever assembled in one place. Humans sat alongside Vorthak, ethereal forms flickered next to solid Korthak warriors, and dozens of species that had been discovered and integrated over the past 5 years added their unique perspectives to the mix. Fellow beings, she began, her words automatically translated into hundreds of languages and communication methods. 5 years ago, we thought we understood what civilization meant. We believed that careful progress, Gradual change and respectful distance between species represented the height of galactic achievement. She paused, allowing the translation systems to catch up. We were wrong. The chamber remained silent, but Mirathos could feel the attention of hundreds of different forms of consciousness focused on her words. Humanity taught us that true civilization isn't about maintaining comfortable stagnation. It's about ensuring that every sentient being has the opportunity to reach their full potential, regardless of the species they were born into or the challenges they face. She activated the chamber's display system, showing images from across the galaxy. Worlds that had been dying from environmental collapse now teemed with life. Species that had been trapped by biological limitations now thrived with technologies that enhanced their natural capabilities without compromising their essential nature. The Xerion Collective, discovered 3 years ago, were facing extinction from a plague that had ravaged their homeworld for centuries. Today, their population is growing for the first time in 1,000 years, and their unique crystalline technology is helping us build faster-than-light communication networks that benefit everyone. More images flowed across the displays. Construction projects that spanned entire star systems, artistic collaborations between species with completely different sensory modalities, scientific discoveries that emerged from combining radically different approaches to understanding reality. The thought singers of the melodic reaches had developed the most sophisticated consciousness transfer technology in known space, but they were isolated by communication barriers that made contact with other species impossible. Human engineering solved those barriers, and now their consciousness-sharing techniques are revolutionizing how we approach mental health throughout the galaxy. Captain Sarah Chen, now Director of Integration Services, stood to address the assembly. Every species we've encountered has faced challenges that seemed insurmountable using their own resources. But those same challenges become opportunities when we work together. She gestured to a section of the chamber where beings of pure energy worked alongside creatures of crystalline biology to manipulate holographic models of unprecedented complexity. The energy beings of the Cascade Nebula couldn't interact with solid matter. The silicon-based builders couldn't process energy fields. Separately, they were limited. Together, they're creating architectural marvels that exist simultaneously in multiple dimensions. Dr. Veltara, whose research had expanded beyond anything imaginable under the old system, provided the scientific perspective. We've discovered that diversity isn't just beneficial for social reasons. It's essential for solving complex problems that require multiple types of consciousness working in parallel. Her tentacles gestured toward displays showing breakthrough discoveries that had emerged from interspecies collaboration. Medical techniques that combine ethereal consciousness manipulation with Korthak physical therapy and human nanotechnology. Engineering solutions that merge energy being phase manipulation with solid matter construction techniques. Agricultural systems that incorporate photosynthetic processes from dozen different evolutionary pathways. But it was General Korthak who provided the most surprising testimony. The warrior who had once led resistance against human forces now served as director of peaceful conflict resolution. 5 years ago, I thought humans were the greatest threat our galaxy had ever faced, he admitted, his massive frame somehow conveying both strength and gentleness. I was right. They were a threat to our limitations, our acceptance of suffering as inevitable, our belief that problems couldn't be solved. He activated personal recordings from his home system. My people, the Korthak, had accepted that only the strongest could survive. That weakness meant death. Humans showed us that strength can be used to protect the weak rather than dominate them. Our society has transformed from conquest-based to construction-based, and we've never been more powerful. The presentations continued for hours, with representative after representative describing transformations that had seemed impossible just 5 years earlier. Species that had been trapped by resource limitations now had access to abundance. Beings that had been isolated by communication barriers now participated in galaxy-wide consciousness networks. Civilizations that had stagnated for millennia now pushed the boundaries of possibility on a daily basis. As the session concluded, Mirathos found herself reflecting on the journey that had brought them to this point. The fear, the resistance, the gradual understanding, and finally the enthusiastic embrace of change that had seemed so threatening at first. Director, came a familiar voice. She turned to find Dr. Elena Vasquez approaching, with a datapad displaying information that made Mirathos's scales flutter with excitement. Long-range sensors have detected signs of an advanced civilization in the Andromeda Galaxy, Vasquez reported. Initial analysis suggests they may be facing challenges, similar to what we encountered here before, integration. Mirathos felt a surge of emotion that she recognized as the same drive that had motivated humanity's transformation of their own galaxy, the urge to help, to improve, to ensure that no being suffered when the tools existed to prevent that suffering. Recommended course of action? She asked, though she already knew the answer. Standard integration protocols, Vasquez replied with a smile. Peaceful contact, assessment of needs, offer of assistance. Estimated timeline for successful integration, 7 years. Looking around at the assembly of species that had once feared each other, and now worked together as partners in the greatest construction project in cosmic history, Mirathos realized that humanity's true gift to the galaxy hadn't been their technology or their efficiency. It had been their refusal to accept that things couldn't be better. Approved, she said, and felt the excited attention of hundreds of different forms of consciousness focusing on this new challenge. Let's go see what we can build together. The galaxy had feared humanity's power, but it had learned to love humanity's purpose. And that purpose was spreading beyond the stars, carried by beings who had discovered that the most aggressive thing any species could do was refuse to let others suffer when they had the power to help. The age of human dominance had ended. The age of universal cooperation had begun, and it was more beautiful than anything any single species could have imagined alone.